Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke and it is already Friday. It is Friday the 2nd of August and it's just very interesting to think that the year has gone by this quickly. And now it's still hot and sticky here, so it definitely still feels like summer. Although I do have to say that yesterday was Lunasa, which was the August 1st, and good morning, Sam. I was talking about how yesterday was Lunasa, and it is still very hot and humid here in Jersey, but I was recording my podcast for my other channel yesterday, and while I was recording it, all of a sudden a thunderstorm came through. So if you know anything about Celtic or Irish folklore, you know that the thunderstorm coming through is actually a really good omen on Lunasa. That's Lu coming with his lightning bolt. And so there is the promise there of bringing the hot sun down, so to speak. So so we had that. So that happened yesterday. I ended up having to record the podcast in two parts because I was recording it up here and I have skylights up ahead. So it was really, really loud. And so I was like, okay, I don't know. There's a certain amount of noise that I can get out of the backdrop of that. But I didn't think that was one that I could get rid of. I also have I was working on that yesterday on the podcast yesterday, and I had a thought. Okay, my thought's gone. Anyway, it is still early. I did get up this morning. Oh, I did want to tell you a little bit about what my I did my Lunasa ritual last night, and there was certain things that my guides told me, well, this is what you want to work on. So, and those are things we'll just leave them to the side. I feel like it's one of those things sometimes when you're doing that kind of work and intention, that it's better to kind of set it and go away. Because otherwise it becomes a little bit like planting a seed and then digging it up to see whether or not it's growing. So I'm going to kind of leave that to the side. But one of the things that I brought up and that came up in some of my private readings was the issues that I have around driving, which I have talked about on this live stream before. And one thing I don't know if I've ever mentioned is that they literally started on 8/8. They started on the Lion's Gate, which is what it's referred to as. Lion's Gate has a really strong connection to Sirius and Sirius energy. Certainly, if you know anything about Egyptian mythology, August is definitely the month of, that's why they're called the dog days of August, because Sirius is the dog star. It's in Canis Major, the constellation. And Sirius and Sirian type energies were very, very important to the Egyptians, especially since it had to do a lot with the Nile and the flooding of the Nile and things like that Sirius was considered to be very important. And I might have mentioned that there's a friend of mine, Sue Coulson, who runs the Cosmic Classroom out of Avebury, UK. And Sue, she does these lion meditations. In fact, she's going to be doing one next Friday, I think, and I'm probably going to join her for that one. I mean, it's virtual. I mean, I know she does them in person now in the circle. Now the COVID is over, but I started doing hers remotely during COVID. And we kind of Sue and I have met in person. I mean, she actually, when I was there in 2022, I had gone out to Avebury, and she actually drove me around. Good morning. She had actually driven out to go see take me to see all the white horses in the area, like the chalk horses that were on the hillside, and some of the other sites, some of the sacred wells, places where there were additional henges, like besides Avebury, or the stones that, like places where there was like kind of one random megalith in a field, like places like, local to that area, down in Marlborough. And so Sue and I have connected in person as well as virtually. And but it was when I was doing one of her meditations that it was a Syrian type meditation that I actually encountered. And I have to say, like I said, I'm not always a very visual person with this stuff. Sometimes I was seeing certain things, but that was the time I really saw this one kind of Sekhmet type being very, very clearly. Sekhmet, like kind of like a dark lion type figure, like lion head, dark body. And this Sekhmet type being said to me, I don't know. When I saw this being, I was like talking to this, like, hey, like we'd known each other forever, like we were old friends or something. I don't know. I still don't know exactly the name or what this being was, but before the end of the meditation, and this was probably in 2021ish. Was it 2021, 2022? I don't know. Anyway, it was a couple of years after that incident had happened. The being suddenly says to me, oh yeah, and by the way, sorry about the driving thing. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, that was just weird, because I felt almost like it was something that was like thrown in at me, and it was like some influence from somewhere else. I'm still fully trying to digest that. Anyway, that does have to do with what happened at Lunasa, because when I've been doing the Azrael meditations, and again, sometimes I get personal messages, sometimes I get collective messages. It's like anything, and I usually ask him to distinguish, like, is this meant for everybody, or is this just meant for me? And one of the messages I've gotten from me is that this Lion's Gate, which is 8-8, that there's going to be some kind of a shift with that. And so this has been coming up again, and I had a very odd dream last night. I am going to go over the dream I had last night in tomorrow's dream workshop. So I will be doing that. I think I've got just about everybody. I have one more person who wanted to register who hasn't paid me yet. So I'll probably reach out to her today. But I think I'm going to end up having a group of 4 or 5 for this dream workshop. I don't know if anybody else wants to join. Like I said, it's really a workshop tomorrow for people who have had dreams that they would like to interpret. Or, honestly, even if some people don't have a dream, I mean, I got plenty of them. It would just be a chance for people to practice using the amplification method to try to understand dreams. So sometimes people could just go listen to other people's dreams and then say, oh, this is what it seems like to me, or at least just see how the method works. So people can always do that as well. They don't necessarily... I mean, ideally, we want people to bring... I don't want to be the only person bringing dreams to the table. I want to see other people who have something to bring. But if there are some people who don't, we can work around that. So, in any case, with this, but basically, the message I kind of got was that I said, well, will I be able to? Well, what happens at this 8-8 will actually be able to cure my driving problem and like get back to being able to get on highways and do things again. And I got kind of like maybe. And I said, but something significant's happening with 8-8. They said, oh yeah, there's going to be something. And, but it's still going to be, even though I think whatever the block might have been, and the block really might have been, I feel like a lot of the block is actually hormonal, because it seems to keep pointing back. I did some Rahani this morning, and I was focused on that particular issue, and what kept lighting up was, kind of the gynecological areas. Like it was like the ovaries and things. It was kind of like, yeah, that's where the source of this is coming from. And then of course the kidneys as well, because that's where the fear is stored. And I think I had talked about how my fear it somehow is connected also to my fear of heights, my fear of driving. Like almost like I'm going to lose control or I'm going to fall off in some way. Because when it happens, I feel myself being dragged to the left. Like my body's dragging me to the left. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like it's not like something like that is happening per se, but I feel like I'm moving to the left, and last night's dream was something around that too. But it was kind of interesting because it was like I was with a friend of mine. We were kind of like crawling along a ledge that was supposed to be high up on like a building, and I'm freaked out because I can't, because there's like no railing, and my friend is on the other side of me. She's like there. And she's talking to me and everything, like it's not a big deal. And then and she's trying to tell me how high up. I'm like, don't tell me how high up we are. Don't tell me that. And so I asked her not to. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. So I was having this dream that I was like, but then I felt like I was going to fall and then I was going to knock her over too. So I warned her about that, and then she went and just put her foot on the ground. Like, actually, we weren't that high up at all. So it was kind of interesting, and, anyway, it'll be something that we talk about in tomorrow's dream workshop. But, so that was my Lunasa, and in terms of what I was doing yesterday, what I decided to do today, because I don't particularly... A lot of days I'll have a particular topic that I'm focused on, but today I just kind of felt like it was a day, like a wild card day, literally, in the sense that I want to use cards. I have been experimenting with the Essential Oil Oracle, because one of the things about it, and I have used it on here, they're structured, they have like a keyword, this is supposed to be the name of an oil or an oil blend, right? And you have a keyword, then you have what they call a trigger statement, and then you have what they call a true statement. So in other words, this is the negative thought that one might have, and then this is the way that one can turn it around, and then there's the message that's connected with it, right? And generally, we kind of use these as like a final like card pull, like just like a final message or something, or inspiration or something like that. But I started experimenting with these cards in full horoscope spreads and things like that. And I actually found that these are quite meaningful. Or if I have specific questions about specific situations, if you read them in a certain way, you can actually get a lot of information about something that's going on in a situation that maybe is kind of cloudy. Or like, for instance, I'll just give an example. I pulled one for somebody who hadn't heard from a particular person in several months and didn't know why they hadn't heard from that person. So I pulled it, and the card basically said, the trigger statement was, I hate myself. And it was like, or I don't like myself, something to that effect. I can't remember exactly which card it was now. But the person said, oh, yeah, actually, that was kind of an issue, that this person just like really like didn't like themselves, was angry, and was just kind of cutting people off. I had another friend who had asked me about some new that had met somebody and was asking them to connect that person with. They had wanted them to friend a particular person, and they couldn't figure out why this person wanted them to friend, or like what. And this person keeps messaging them, and he's like, what are they messaging me for? Like, what is this about? And so when I pulled the card, it was just, there was all these cards, it was all these words about connection. And I said, I think this person's trying to connect you with this person. Like, maybe he thinks you're going to want to get together with this person, or you're the same type, and it would not have been the right thing. But, you know what I mean? So those are just a couple of examples, but I've been playing around with these, so I don't know. I'm contemplating doing readings. I'm also contemplating maybe doing like a YouTube live stream where I just do readings, but I want to do something that's a bit moderated. My problem with doing a lot of times, like letting people come in and ask questions and so forth, is that you get a lot of like parasites who kind of jump on. You get people who are not only spammers, but they go and they try to take the IDs of every person, and then they start spamming them saying, I'll do a reading for you, I'll do a reading for you. You know those annoying people, like when you friend them and then they do the DM, oh, yes, I see this thing about you, you need to book a reading with me, and they're scammy. I mean, and it's, I'm like, when I join a page, I'm not looking for somebody to DM me trying to sell me something, like that's just not a good marketing strategy, and most people just don't like it. They kind of find it invasive, and it's also the way, and a lot of them too are scammy. If you go through, they may be copies of other people's accounts, and weirdly a lot of them were coming out of Nigeria, and then now they've somehow found a way to hide where the location is, I've noticed on a lot of them. But you have a lot of these spoof accounts where people will do that, and so what I have found is the times I have done live streams, when I have my own deck, the Antarian Oracle, when I've done readings with my own deck, all the people who were in there suddenly started getting messages about, oh, you need to come to me for a reading and stuff, like some random woman. And then this woman was trying to friend me, and I was like, no, and I had to apologize to everybody on there, because this person, they had to end up blocking this person because she just like persistently came on. Even if I don't even know if it was a her, I don't know if it was a bot, I don't know what it was, but those are the things you have to watch out for when you do group readings. There's another reader that I know who, I think Lynn, I forget what her last name is now, but she does a lot of research on stuff relating to the kind of water spirits of like the northern part of England, like your Peg Powlers and Jenny Greenteeth and some of these fairy figures. She does a lot of good academic research on that, but she also is a reader, and she has made her own deck. And she and her husband would do readings, and I used to join in on those live streams, just to be supportive. I mean, not that Lynn Thurman, that's who it is. She actually has plenty of people who get on there. She doesn't necessarily need me, but then that's what would happen every time. You would get spammed by these people who would come on and say like, oh, if you're interested in a reading, then you want to, and it's just, it's really annoying. So anyway, I'm thinking about doing a YouTube live, but we'll see how that goes. So I'm just going to start by doing our reading today, and let's just see where the topics take us, because I have a few different decks. Like I said, I have the Essential Oil deck, I have the Osho Zen that I normally use, I have my cartouche deck, I have my Norse runes, and I have the Druid craft out, and I also have the Black Moon cards. So we'll see which ones feel like the right ones to use within the time frame that we have. So let's just see, what do people need to know today who are watching this or who will be watching this on the recording? All right, so let's see what we have at Osho Zen. Oh, interesting. Okay. Wow. All right, so the first card we have here is the Six of Rainbows, which is usually the Six of Pentacles. And in this deck, this is the card of compromise, okay? It doesn't give it a pleasant inflection in this deck. Now, Six of Pentacles is one of those cards that can go either way. It's like, I don't know, like a lot of the 6 and 5, 6, 7 cards, there's different ways that you can look at them. You can look at them positively, because some people will look at the Six of Pentacles and say, well, this is a card of equal exchange, of give and take. Generally, in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, you have a person who is giving alms to, well, the beggars, basically, giving, handing things out. And the focus is on one person, and there's another person over here that they're not looking at. So a lot of readers will interpret that as, well, they're giving to one person and maybe not to the other. That other person could be you, or there could be somebody else looking for attention who's not getting it. There's a lot of ways you can think about that imagery. But in this particular deck, Six of Pentacles talks about compromise. So what it's talking about is the situations that we get in where we do something because we think this is okay, we spend a lot of time on this live stream talking about authenticity and doing things authentically. So it's those situations that we get into that we compromise what we really want to do for some other reason that we think we need to. So, for example, oh, I really don't want to work with this person, but, I need the money and they pay. So, the way in which you compromise and don't do exactly what it is you want to do, because, and I mean, I'm not talking about kind of a general customer service thing, because anybody who's working for any kind of public facing, whether it be store or retail, whether it be service kind of organization, whatever it is, you're always sort of compromising, because you can't, if you're doing proper customer service, you can't, tell somebody off. Some days you really want to, but you can't. Or, well, I don't know. I'm going to use the almighty should. We probably shouldn't, but in a lot of cases, a lot of times we have to kind of bite our tongue as to determine what we might actually want to say in those cases. But I think this is a little bit more about compromising your own truth. So I think there's this may be an issue that somebody is faced with, where they feel like they have to do something. It's a little bit of selling your soul, so to speak. That might be an overstatement, but it's a little bit of this sense of feeling that there's certain things that you have to do that maybe you don't want to do in order to further some kind of a goal or an end. That's the implication of this card in this deck. So it may be saying, look out for ways where you may be compromising yourself, and and maybe you don't even need to, but you think you do. Okay. Honestly, when I see this card come up, sometimes it's a case where, it may not be ideal, but it's kind of, it's the right thing to do. If you're, and it's interesting because the internal feeling of which we're unaware is the isolation card. Okay. We have the person who is frozen in ice and who is breaking out like through the tears here. That's this is the Three of Swords, and that's actually a really good, I think that's a really good way of depicting the energy of the Three of Swords, because the Three of Swords is, a lot of times we talk about heartbreak. Oh, separation, you're breaking up with somebody's leaving you, or you feel somebody has betrayed you. There's been something that has caused a separation. But the thing is, the three also, one of the things that's often missed, because when you look at it, again, Rider-Waite-Smith, which tends to be the imagery the kind of imagery that is the most copied or the most associated. You have the heart with the three swords in it, but you kind of have these clouds, but you kind of have a light that's behind it in the distance. So there's the implication, just as with this, that after coming out of a period of isolation, there's a healing process that's going on. So we're getting into a space where we don't feel alone, where we don't feel disconnected from people. Okay, so yeah, so the isolation card showing up here, saying the inner feeling of, this is the position of this card is the inner feeling of which we are unaware. So in other words, we may be compromising ourselves because maybe we are operating from that place of hurt or isolation, or feeling like, well, I don't feel loved over here, so I'm just going to go away and do this. This is not really what I want to do, but there's kind of a sense of feeling that maybe you're alone or going it alone, and there may be not even be an awareness that there's a healing process going on. It's interesting too, because a lot of people who I work with Rouhani right now, there's this opening up that occurs. It's really this kind of a thing, and it's people who, again, I mean, it's not the people who are kind of going through this stuff, and that actually could be anybody and everybody, and I include myself in that. I mean, you kind of go through this period where, good morning, JR. I see that you just joined. There's this. It's like you're going through this period of isolation, of like you're, like where you maybe we may be friendly with people, we may be outgoing, we may be forward facing, we may do stuff, but internally it's like we've kind of cut things off. We've put the fortress around. I'm actually talking about this in next week's podcast a little bit. It's the way in which we do the things that we feel that we have to do. Interestingly, I was thinking about this because I'm working on this podcast on Jezebel, which is the one that I'm putting up on Katonia next week. Wow, me. Okay, interesting. Yeah, the way in which we may feel. I know for myself, personally, that was the wound that I kind of uncovered as the more I did Rouhani, was just that it's like, I kept kind of seeing like the story in my mind that didn't have to do with me, but it's like one of the narratives that's kind of floating around when I write fiction and stuff like that. And it's just this narrative of the person who's just, for no good reason, really. It's just kind of, people just aren't supporting them. There's not the support. There may be that feeling of having to compromise. And one of the things I say in the Jezebel podcast, because Jezebel is a term that we use for somebody who is, it's a disparaging term, really, towards a certain type of woman, a woman who is, too concerned with her appearance, which is just kind of a misunderstanding of Jezebel's final act. And there's the, or the idea that that's a woman who's too strong and too independent. By association with the way we associate strong feminine women, too promiscuous. Okay, there's an implication of that, although if you actually read the Bible story, there's nothing about her being promiscuous, just that she is somebody who is ferocious. And and it's interesting because I'm thinking, to a certain degree, she compromises a certain aspect of her feminine nature to be ferocious, but that's because, and to be kind of unforgiving in the way that she behaves. But when you're in a position where you feel like it's you against all these people, when you're not in the dominant position, it's the way in which we've been taught that you have to kind of fight for dominance, And when we're taught like, okay, and sometimes the way people respond to that, and you see this in the animal kingdom too, where if there's somebody makes a play for dominance, some person might just step back and be passive and just say, well, you know what, it's what I call taking your ball and going home. Like, you know what, I'm just not going to participate. I'm just going to withdraw. And that can be a kind of compromise too, because then we don't share our gifts. We don't put ourselves out there. We don't do things because we're too, because we feel that other people aren't interested in what we're doing, right? Now the external feeling of which we're aware here, we have the traveling card. The 8 of Wands. And so things are moving and changing, and things are moving fast. We've been kind of stuck in this space, but you also, 8 of Wands, you got to remember, is fire too. Fire warms things up. It heats things up. It moves things along. And I know yesterday when we did a reading, we got the solar eclipse card. And solar eclipse is like a card of revolution. It's like, the revolution is happening. Like there's big changes that are going on, big shifts. And these shifts might demand that we move and change. There might be new messages coming in. There might be stuff where we may have felt stuck for a long time, might have felt stuck. But externally, it may just be that things are going to be happening that are suddenly going to move stuff along. And because really, it's amazing how things can change overnight. You know, you can be in a situation, you know, one day where you are assuming this is what my next 6 months, year, whatever is going to look like. But then something happens, like a message comes in, an opportunity comes in, something comes in, and boom, everything's different by the next day. So that can certainly happen. So I don't know. So it's kind of almost like there's been a lot of rapid change. And perhaps the response to that rapid change has then been a lot of people have just pulled back, because even if the change is positive, there may be a response, there may be a fear response there about maybe, oh, I've seen this situation before, and maybe this is going to be a repeat of a bad situation, or for whatever reason, especially if what people are working on right now is like heart opening, which is what we were talking a lot about with the Rouhani and so forth. It could be that there's a, you know, because things are happening so fast with that, it maybe people might be like, well, whoa, I'm not ready to, you know, give up the thing. I'm not willing to give up the compromise right now. Even if they know it's a compromise, they're still maybe feeling this wounding that they're healing from and kind of going, yeah, I'm not quite ready to move ahead yet. However, we do have the consciousness card. This is our advice. We have, this is Ace of Swords, okay? So there's a clarity here. So I feel like what this is saying is there's a situation, things are moving, messages have come in, there's an absolute clarity about where people need to go. And remember, Ace of Swords is also about new thinking about things in a new way, moving in a new direction. And so, yeah, so I feel like there's a clarity here. And, but this wounding that we're still recovering from, you know, you see the person melting their way out of it through tears. You know, the idea that one has to go through the emotional work, which a lot of people don't want to do. That's something I kind of get a lot from a lot of people who I work with, is the whole idea of, like if I have a client who is, you know, I'm doing something for, and let's just say they start to cry. A lot of times people will start to apologize as soon as they start to cry. I'm sorry, I shouldn't. Of course you should. I mean, that's part of the healing, you know. It's like saying, that's almost like if you go to the doctor and you have a cut and you take the bandage off and it starts bleeding and you go, I'm sorry, I don't mean to bleed. You know, it's like you do, you know, what needs to be done to start the healing process, right? So it's like, yeah, you're here to be healed. It's not like you're, I don't know. I actually, as I've often said, I feel like expressing emotions, I feel like crying and doing all those other things. Well, I know a lot of us don't like drama. By the same token, I also feel like we kind of keep a lot of those emotions in, and there should be a way to express those emotions. There should be a way for people to have an outlet for those. I've said that forever, because just keeping it into yourself because you're going to be stoic, or you're going to be, then all it does is you kind of like have one, that's kind of a compromise too. We have one facade for the outside, but inside people are kind of dying, you know? And so there's the whole thing of, no, it's good you want to open that up. And that's just another reason to open up the heart space, because then you want to get to where you authentically are. You don't want to be living the wound. Oh, well, that's going to get me to the Chiron class that we're doing on August 17th. That's going to be fun. That's going to be exciting. But we're to talk about those wounds. And I think part of this has to do with that wounding as well, because Chiron is retrograde now, and then Mercury's going retrograde soon, going retrograde Monday. So now we're kind of at this point where we're revisiting stuff, and old stuff might come up again. And in fact, our outcome card is the Six of Cups again, the dream card. Okay, and as we see in this card, as I've mentioned before, you have the girl who is like the young girl looking at this mystical kind of beautiful couple and saying, oh, you know, I wish that, you know, that's the dream. You know, if only I had that. Now, I've often talked about this as the rescuer card, but I have to think about the Six of Cups as a card that revisits the past, that kind of goes back. And some of that is the nostalgia for the way things were. So we may have with this dream card the idea that we are that somehow if one thing had changed, that things would be better. I've known people, now again, this is just within my own family and my own life, so this is not anybody else. But I know at least one person in my family who has said, oh, well, if I had only married so-and-so, then my life would have been perfect. And I'm like, from what I know about so-and-so, they were very abusive to their spouse and so on and so forth. So I don't know that you would have been better with so-and-so. But people have a narrative of, oh, if only this had happened. And sometimes that's when we get into the blame narratives too. When you start to blame parents, when you start to blame people, parents in particular. If people who say, because this is a particular individual who will say that the parents ruined their life because they interfered with a relationship that would have been the perfect relationship. And it's like, no, they actually probably helped you dodge a bullet there. But there wasn't, but again, there's a point that, where we have to acknowledge that, like, say, our parents and stuff make mistakes. They do things. There's a lot of that, family stuff. For a lot of people, like I have fourth house Pluto, and so does my sister. We kind of have this, so there's right now, Pluto's super active, where it's moving. Pluto's actually over my north node right now. So there's a whole lot of work there. And being its fourth house, there is a lot of family stuff that's kind of being worked on there. But when we come into that, it's like, it's like we kind of look to the past. We may idealize certain things about the past. And really the reason that we idealize the past is because the past is a known quantity. It could be the most terrible thing. It's kind of the way when people pass away, even if they were like not such great people, somehow they become sainted just by virtue of the fact that they've passed away. And I always feel like, well, it's important to remember, you don't, the memory of somebody could be sanitized for that reason. And, the whole don't speak ill of the dead. But at the same time, it's like, yes, but if that person had some kind of an impact that has to be dealt with by saying, well, you shouldn't talk about that person that way because they're dead now, that's not really helpful to the person who might have felt victimized or might have had certain emotions around it. You know what I mean? You need to be able to, you can't say, I'm not allowed to talk about this now because that person is sacrosanct. Not necessarily. I mean, that person's going to go on to whatever other lessons they have, but that's not, that doesn't mean that, if that's something that's blocking you, you need to work on that and acknowledge that and have whatever feelings. And all that said, though, it's also, we have to make sure that we don't blame we don't look at the past and say, I can't move forward because of the past. We do have to, it's kind of like saying, the dream is saying that we have to step away from that fantasy vision of when things were great and work with what is and move forward. Okay, that's what I feel like the message is here. And that may be, it's funny because we got there's 2 6s in this reading. I don't want to say there's a lot, but there's 2 6s. And so 6s that are usually a stage of moving past the conflict, right? 5s are all about change in tarot. They're all, and those are kind of a lot of the fears of being ghosted or isolated or not having enough money. 5 of Pentacles, right? 5 of Wands is the energy of conflict. Like usually it's supposed to be more playful conflict, but competition and things like that, and the way in which other people get involved in your business. The 5 of Swords is about defeat, or about, can be about jealousy and things like that. The way in which we feel that it's no use, I've been defeated, I can't do it. And then the 5 of Cups, which is that grief about what's been lost and not seeing the 2 cups behind that are still standing, focusing on the 3 that have been tipped over. So when we get to the 6s, we've moved out of that space to a certain degree. And the 6 of Cups, it's interesting. In the Mythic Tarot, the 6 of Cups is, the Cups suit is the Eros and Psyche myth. And by the time, and of course, as we know, this starts with Psyche being carried off by Eros. Supposedly she's supposed to marry a monster, and she's in this beautiful palace, but everybody's invisible, and she can't see her husband. He only comes at night, and there's a whole thing. And so she lives what a lot of people think is this idyllic existence, but she feels very alone, right? And because there's nobody, nobody real, so to speak, in front of her. And so she's in this kind of dream world, right? And then the sisters come in, and the sisters say to her, and a lot of people think the sisters were the bad, they're bad, they're jealous. It's like, No, actually, the sisters are the one who are saying to her, they said the prophecy was you were going to marry a monster. Like, are you so sure about? I mean, everything looks nice, but, and of course, they're couched as being jealous. But they also are coming in with a certain kind of real world wisdom that's saying, hey, are you are you kind of in this, you're in this ungrounded kind of space. Like, how are you going to get grounded and look at this? And so then Psyche goes in with the lamp. She goes in with the lamp of consciousness. It's interesting. It's kind of fitting in with this reading, right? And she has the knife in her hand too. And this is hugely symbolic of the heroic myth and cutting yourself out of the belly of the beast kind of thing. She never doesn't actually, what happens is the candle wax drips on Eros because she sees that her husband is the god of love. And Julie, now she's interested. Now she can see, and now she likes what she sees. But he wakes up, he feels betrayed, and he leaves. So that's the beginning. That's the beginning of the real love, because before he's just a fantasy. It's just an image. It's just a fantasy. It's not a real person. You see that a lot with people. People will fall in love and they will idealize people and say, oh, that person's everything. They're this and that. And it's like, and a lot of times the people who are the object of that will go, yeah, but you don't actually know me. You know what you see. You know the facing image. You know whatever physically perhaps you might like about the person, but you don't know the person. So frequently, it's that tempering. So in that deck, basically, the Six of Cups is after Eros has left, and Psyche is reflecting on what she had. And she's sitting there thinking about the times that she had with him. So there's a nostalgia there. But the thing is, that's just kind of like this kind of wistful interlude before it's like, okay, well now we have to move into that space. You move into the space of the Seven of Cups, where now you have to figure out what's real. You've reflected on the past, and you may be reflecting on the past in a very idealized kind of way, so then you have to move into a space where you say what's real and what's not real, and then by the time you move to the Eight of Cups, it's like you're saying, okay, what needs to be let go of here? I mean, when we get to the Five of Cups, we already know that there's some kind of thing in the past that we have to let go of and move forward from. But how do we let go of that? And then, by the time you move to the Eight, you are in this emotional space where you say, okay, even if that was a good path, even if I find things about it that I like and say, and remember the things I'm grateful for and the things I'm happy about, it's like, okay, but there may be a certain aspect of it that you don't want to be tied to it because it's maybe keeping you from moving forward. So that's what the dream card, I feel like, is about, okay? And let me flip one of these cards. Okay, we have, this is the black pepper card. So here's the word for today. Yeah, the trigger statement, the key word is integrate. And the trigger statement is I am trapped. The true statement is I am whole. It says, allow parts of yourselves you hide to make themselves known. In the light you will see the wisdom they hold. Interesting. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about the Six of Pentacles in this one, the compromise card. Sometimes we hide certain aspects of ourselves because we think other people are not going to love us for those. Or that if it's something that's very dear to our heart, if we feel someone's going to criticize it or make fun of it or it's going to be rejected, then sometimes we're just automatically anticipating that rejection. So we compromise it. So we kind of go, well, it's kind of like this, but it's not kind of like this, and we kind of I've been guilty of that. I've done that with certain things. So there definitely is that kind of feeling. But it's interesting to talk about it being whole. One of the things I end my myth classes with is Jung's statement, I don't strive to be a good man, I strive to be a whole man, okay? And so I don't strive to be good, I strive to be whole. And so that means that, that to be whole means that we accept all parts of ourselves, not just the parts that we think other people are going to like. So maybe that I think might be kind of where this is headed. It's kind of like the idea that you don't want to compromise yourself, because even the parts of yourself that you think, there might be some people who don't like certain aspects of what you do, but then there's going to be other people who need to see or hear what it is that you're doing. I get this a lot with my fiction writing and that's the area I think where I actually do a lot of compromise, because I write things and then I feel like, well, I have to be very careful about how I write this. This group of people might get upset by it, or this one. And that's never the way to write a story, okay? I'm editing someone's story right now too, and that's kind of been an issue that I've been dealing with that as well. And it's just like, you know, I can't, you know, don't, you know, the text itself is really, really good. But what if some people are upset because I mentioned this, or what if some people get mad? What if reviewers, you know, people are fearful of rejection. They're fearful that other people are not going to like it. And I feel like I should promote my books more than I do. Part of it's because I have 8 million different irons in the fire, but I feel like that's the thing. And but some of the stuff in there in my books is quite shocking. And if I feel that there is somebody, say, who might be triggered by that content, yeah, I'm not going to push the book towards that person, because I'll be like, well, this may not be something that you particularly want to look at right now. But again, the whole point of my fiction is to, you know, it's not about me personally. These are not my life events, but they tell a narrative of somebody who does feel isolated, and the different ways in which they negotiate those masculine and feminine forces a lot of times. And most of the time, if there's one theme that I can say in the fiction writing that I do, it's that typically the characters are not stock characters. They might be like you might have there might be something about them that seem very normal, or that people can identify, or you might think that something is a trope. Oh, you know, kind of the helpless person, or this or that. Like, you might think that there's some kind of a trope there, but the situations that they get in, the narratives that they get in, don't end the way you think. So in other words, the people who are presented as the villains, usually, the villains often end up being the people who are supposed to be the good people, are the ones who often end up being the villains, and vice versa. Because it's nuanced, because it's not like the villain doesn't have villainous qualities, but they're also, but you also see that this person has empathy, or that they have a very human side to them. And that's the thing that a lot of times we strive to hide, because we want to be, you know, we want to be like that, you know, well, I don't care what you think, and I don't care what you say. You know, or people feel that they have to be hostile or attack or put up a wall because people have come in and hurt them. And so when you have people like this, a lot of times in my novels, and the one that I'm actually been kind of being prompted to finish and get out this fall, you have a character who everybody thinks is like the worst, has the worst reputation. It's like, you know, campfire stories about how terrible this person is and the things that he does. But he's actually, I mean, yeah, he's not a saint, that's for sure. But he's also not a character that has done all of the things that people say. It's like people have taken it and exaggerated it to almost urban legend status. And as it turns out, he's not, you know, there'll be people who look at his behavior and go, well, he did this and he did that. This is not, that's my whole point. It's not about ethics, and it's not about sainthood. It's about being a whole person. And being a whole person means there's going to be attributes about you that people are not going to like and not going to accept. And if you do certain things, like those, they follow you. Like you could be a completely different person later. People go, yeah, but you did this one time, or you did this in the past. We tend to we tend to not allow for people to do anything that allows for growth. So anyway, interesting stuff today. I thought we would do more readings, but I kind of did a lot with that one and with this one. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me again. I appreciate it. And yeah, today is, so yeah, tomorrow, I'll be doing the live stream tomorrow and Sunday, not Monday, because Monday I'm going into New York City. I have to catch I think I figured out the 7:06 to make it to Manhattan at the time that I need to get there. So, oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And, you know, yeah, so we will see that. Oh, you're welcome. Anytime, of course. Like I said, well, pretty much every day. But, you know, whether it's really wisdom or not, I guess will matter of perspective. But yeah, but it's, you know, in any case, I feel like it's something maybe we all work through together. So, Everybody have a great Friday and a great start to your weekend. And then I'll be here tomorrow morning. And like I said, if you didn't catch this, you can watch the video. And yes, thank you. And yeah, and so I will see you tomorrow. Take care.